limited capacity. Still, the vaccination program continues with the addition of minors to be vaccinated. Meanwhile, the Philippines recorded its lowest COVID-19 daily count in months. If this trend continues, are we nearing the WHO threshold indicating a controlled transmission? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay, and with us online, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Ed Lingao is here with me in Mandaluyong. He's from One News. Chiefs, good evening.
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 It's a hump day.
No, happy Wednesday. Ami, happy Wednesday talaga.
Happy
It's
Wednesday
1,000 something,
1.6 ba?
1,600 new cases, and as we just said, that's the lowest in months. I don't even know.
9 months. 9 months. Kaya wala nang curfew for adults.
Is that good news or bad news?
Well, yung iba nag-aalala, no? Especially the health experts. They're worried. Pero anyway, yung transport, dinagdagan. 70%, mall hours longer for Christmas. So I'm sure the businessmen are happy. Diba?
Nagtatanggal na nga ng plastic shields dun sa mga jeep, di ba? Yung plastic
Dividers.
dividers.
Yeah, yung dividers wala na. Because now it's now 70%. Pinaglalaban pa rin ng transport advocates
May
na
100%.
baka pwede 100%.
At saka yung face shield daw, baka makatanggalin na rin. Oo. Yeah.
Pero
So,
politics, dahil politics ang ano natin sabi ni Senator Bongo, President Duterte is considering the proposal for him to run for the Senate.
aba mag-Senate President daw, yan ang balak
Kaya nga.
Oo
Pero alam mo, magandang kausapin dyan, hindi lang yung, speaking of politics and COVID, di ba, yung may medical practitioner na sumasabak sa politika. Yan ang dapat natin kausapin.
Yan ang segue mo.
Oo, yun. Pagtutugmayin natin yan. Kaya ngayon po, let's begin tonight with 2022 Partido Reforma Senatorial Aspirant Dr. Ninggita Padilla. Good evening, Dr. Padilla.
Good evening.
Magandang gabi po.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Yes.
Dr. Padilla, sige, we'll ease into the political side. We'll start with you wearing your doctor's hat. Let me ask you first how you feel about, the trends right now. Una, bumababa yung numbers. On the other hand, that's coming out of a long weekend also. So we do anticipate that may have had some impact. But at the same time, the bigger things, we're now considering face-to-face classes. We're moving to reopen the economy. Dinadagdagan ang capacity ng transport. Siksika na ulit sa mga bus. Traffic na naman sa kalye. Ang daming tao sa mga malls.
Tapos next week, may pelikula na.
No. So how do you feel about everything right now as a doctor?
Actually, as a doctor and as a person who's been helping the business sector as well from the beginning, and as somebody who's keeping up to date with what's happening with COVID, you have to remember, Metro Manila we've got at least, because 90% of the target population has been vaccinated. And we have many people who have had the infection without even knowing it, and they have antibodies. I'll tell you that. They did a study in preparation for a clinical trial for Clover vaccine, and they were surprised that in 7 Metro Manila cities and 2 in the cities in the outskirts, 65% of adults who never had vaccinations were already positive for antibodies, for neutralizing antibodies. In other words, they had COVID, they got well. You add that to the vaccines, to those being vaccinated in Metro Manila, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying we are. I wouldn't be surprised if we're reaching the point of herd immunity, because we have so many people who got infected na hindi nila alam. Okay,
Natural
and hindi nagre-report.
immunity.
Natural immunity, because you see, you get herd immunity 2 ways: vaccination and natural. So we're not saying you have to go for natural. Definitely you should get vaccinated, but it is a factor. And that is why we're seeing the numbers going down, because we're aggressive in the vaccination. There's no other way. Okay, now, because of that.
Are you saying,
yes.
wait, but are you saying that that's something that the government never measured? Is that a
Yes.
vital point of information that we
Yes.
should have factored in that we didn't?
Yes, we should have. It helps because especially at the early point where we are lacking vaccines, no? That's why these people needed to study who already had COVID, who had none, no? But in some countries, for example, Israel, France, and other countries, and even Singapore for a while, nung kulang pa ang bakuna, they were able to ramp it up. Why? And to expand the number of vaccinees. Why? They took into account who had it now and who had antibodies. Because those people, many studies have shown, one bakuna lang is enough. So you can spread the vaccines more. They're doing that as a method to spread the limited vaccines. Okay, in a world where the rich countries have so much vaccines and the poor countries don't have enough, that's useful. However, now if we are to believe government, and I think Secretary Galvez is telling the truth, we have a lot of vaccines just lying around not being used. Not being used, no? But let's go to that later. What's happening now in Metro Manila? Am I in favor of easing? Actually, I am. I am in favor, but this curfew, maybe not the curfew yet, okay? Because sometimes when you say no curfew, the people get lax, okay? I want the easing. I want removing those plastic barriers that really don't help. They really do not help. Even face shields, many of us are questioning them because face shields are meant for droplet transmission. Like you're a doctor, you're seeing a patient, bubugahan ka ng laway, ng kung ano-ano, no? But for, what you call this, if it's the air, it may end up even in the face shield. It may end up even in those barriers. So if you're in a public transport, it was us actually who was really telling, our group, the doctors, the experts were telling the IATF, can you please remove those barriers? They might even add to the problem than help. Okay? They may be a repository of the viruses. Now, there must be ventilation. What's important is ventilation. Tuloy-tuloy yung hangin. Kahit air condition yan, kailangan may hangin all over the place. At hindi magsasalita, hindi magkakwentuhan, hindi kakain sa transportation. But I believe 70% muna, wag naman full. Okay? And wag muna yung siksikan.
Okay. Doc,
just no standing. But I think we're ready to open up, at least in Metro Manila.
Doc, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to your Clover study, yung 65%.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating kasi it never occurred to us na ganun karami yung nakuha ng virus na hindi nalalaman na asymptomatic. Yung 65% po, is it possible at all? Is it possible to extrapolate that to a national level? Kasi here you're talking about 7 cities in Metro Manila and 2 other areas outside Metro Manila.
You know, we were hoping early on last year, a group of us led by former Health Secretary Manuel Taylit, and I was one of the people, the co-investigators, we were trying to get a seroprevalence study among a lot of towns in Luzon, not just Metro Manila, to see ilan na ba talaga ang nagka-COVID. Pero we did not get support from the government. And that's really sad, no? And a lot of scientists were hoping we would. So it's called seroprevalence.
Yeah.
Because it will give you a better idea of how many talaga got the infection. Because right now, we don't know. In India, for example, remember there was this Delta surge where they were dying in the streets, being burned along in the fires in the streets. Remember that? And bigla now, they're better. Then they said 90% of the Indians have antibodies because of their surge. So they're vaccinating like anything, but at the same time, a lot of them are already seropositive, meaning SERO positive for antibodies. So my point is, it is a nice way to see, ano ba talaga, where are we now? Because there are some people who are there are some economies that are being held down, and they say, walang bakuna, baka isa lang ang kailangan mo because your antibodies will rise if in the same level as somebody who's never had the infection, who has 2 vaccines, and you who've had the infection, kahit isang bakuna lang, nakikita, it will go to the same level. In other words, you don't need 2. That is one way of using the information to spread out the vaccines. That's if your vaccines are limited, which it was for a long time. And I don't know if we really have enough, but they say we have enough now. If you have enough vaccines, then just do the 2 vaccine thing for a double dose and 1 vaccine with a single dose. But if you don't have enough vaccines, that is one way to spread the vaccines, okay? It's a very nice thing to know. Ilan na ba talaga? You know, because they say, we only are reporting what, 1/10, 1/5? How many are really getting reported? Many never report that they got sick because they're afraid to report. They just hide in their homes, diba? So you know, there are many things that, you know, but we could do, but they're saying it's expensive. We don't know which antibody tests are really helpful, et cetera, et cetera. So, but this is one data which we're missing.
Okay.
Doctor, which government agency did you approach for this?
Well, actually,
study?
no, it has finished already. The study was, the study had been already finished, the clinical trials for this vaccine. It was a vaccine trial, okay? In several, well, the one who was reporting to us was Dr. Lulu Bravo. She was in charge. You can ask her. No?
Because you've been reported as saying that you find the pandemic response poor. Can you be more specific about
yes,
or inadequate?
poor.
So,
No. Yeah.
can you be more specific about it?
Okay, no, I was saying that there was a lack of a sense of urgency. It was basically that at the start, and this is from the very beginning. You have to remember that it was March 2020. We also found out that there was no reporting, or there was a lack of transparency. We were not told that there was already community transmission when there were already COVID patients in the hospitals or in ICUs. We didn't know, the doctors. We were sitting ducks. Because many doctors died early on. That's one. There's lack of transparency. Two is they did not close borders as soon as they should have. There was a slow response. No, they were still thinking of hurting the feelings of China. Three, we were not ready with the testing. We had, there was like so lackadaisical. Oh, we have 2,000 test kits. That should be enough. It was not enough. People were dying before they even knew if they had COVID. So there was a lack of urgency, no? And to the point that the private sector, it's a good thing the private sector was there, and the doctors in both public and government hospitals kami na nagre-raise ng funds. We were the ones raising funds to get the PPEs, et cetera, et cetera. So we were like scrambling. So we felt there was a lack of a sense of urgency. Then the vaccines. Okay, the vaccines, we could have got them earlier, and I think it's been talked about, dropping the ball, etc. No, and then overpricing. I know for a fact things were overpriced. Even the testing was overpriced, and if it were not for the pagkakulit ng private sector, the PCR test would be 8,500 pa bawat test, and it went down and went down. So my point is, and then the vaccines, the price of the vaccines. Until now, this is November 3, 2021, we still don't know how much government paid for the Sinovac vaccine. So lack of transparency. So when you have that, there's a lack of trust.
Okay.
And when there's a lack of trust, you have a problem, even with implementing vaccination. So that's sunod-sunod.
Dr. Padilla, we will get into all of those details, but let's just signal it very clearly. We're now asking you as somebody who's running for the Senate.
Okay.
Well, let's start with that. Why? I mean, why run for the Senate? I mean, in this past 1.5 years, we could sense naman you're very open about your frustration, your questions, and so on. But why run for the Senate? How much of a difference do you think that makes?
Okay. Well, okay. If you were to ask me, I would probably make a bigger difference if I were Secretary of Health, because you could really do something. But then again, you depend on the president. How do you know the president will want you to be Secretary of Health, or you even have the same ideals, the same passion for, the same political will? So the Senate, okay, I have been an advocate for health for the past maybe 26 years, 27 years. And I've been working with senators, with congressmen, and we advocate. We tell them everything we feel has to be done. But at the end of the day, it's still up to them. And many times it can be frustrating, okay? We see a lot of the laws that we helped to pass through our technical working groups, etc., not being implemented properly, and yet there's no oversight. Nobody's telling them, oy, mali yan. But we doctors, we live through it. No? I work in Philippine General Hospital. I cater to even the poorest of the poor and the most desperate. I also work in a private hospital, St. Luke's. I see the extremes. Okay, I teach also in UP. We see the patient's needs. We see how the laws affect us. If you are just making the laws and you don't live in the trenches the way we do, it's hard to really understand how your laws affect us and what needs to be fixed. And we know which are being implemented properly and which are not. And so and then I've been in PhilHealth. I worked in PhilHealth 1.5 years, the latter part of the Aquino administration. And we tried to effect a lot of reforms, and we did. But there's so much that has to be done in PhilHealth.
Yeah.
And look what's happening now. They're not paying the hospitals. We know, I kind of know how to solve many problems, but if I'm just an advocate, I don't have much of a voice. But if I'm in the Senate, I will have the floor. I can have more
Okay,
influence maybe
Could
in the
I
laws,
start with one
isn't it?
with
Yeah.
one example that you cited? High prices of testing kits, high prices of vaccines, overpricing. Let's throw Pharmaly in there and the face mask. With your decades of experience, is that a problem just now, or is that a chronic problem in our public health environment?
I believe there's overpricing. It's a chronic problem in the Department of Health. And I'm very sorry to say this, no, but there have been so many, how do you say this, anomalies or things that are not really run the way they should. Even in the supply chain management, there's so much to be desired. Why buy expiring medicines at regular price when they should be 30% off? Things like that, no? And we hear about it, but we're not in there. We can't really do anything about it. Now, this Pharmaly thing, what makes this extremely horrible, no, is the fact that it happened during a pandemic when people were dying. There was desperation among the people. People were suffering. And that's why it's extremely painful, no, for the healthcare workers and even for the patients themselves. You know, corruption has been happening in every administration. But parang to see it happening this way, no? Yung garapalan talaga, yung pagpapayaman, as they say, no? Habang nagdurusa yung karamihan, it's like you wonder what kind of souls they have. Because, and then we were there scrambling for PPEs, using garbage bags, while all these deals were going on. And there were delays. Why were there delays? And I can tell you, there was a tug of war between those in government who were earnestly doing their job and those who were trying to make a profit. So I'm sure there was some form of overpricing happening. I don't have all the data, but this time I know there was. And it was a time of desperation. That's why this is what makes it extremely, difficult for us to take. And we cannot ignore. And maybe because we've turned our backs too long, we turned a blind eye too long on corruption, parang it became, commonplace, just how it's done, and with more impunity. No? Parang, I see, okay lang. So it became commonplace, even in the time of suffering and in the time of pandemic.
In terms of laws that you feel you ought to be pushing once you become senator, if you become senator, no? How else can you improve on the Universal Health Care Act, for example, which is now law? And if you follow the provisions, actually, it's not a bad law at all, especially as it legislates a national insurance system, which has yet to materialize. No? But what exactly can you do if you sit as senator to make sure that this law is actually enforced to the letter and according to the intent for which it was actually passed?
Okay, that's a good question. There are two elements. One is PhilHealth and one is the UHC law itself. Okay, PhilHealth is the carrot and the stick of the UHC. Without a good PhilHealth, it's impossible. Okay, the UHC law, part of it tells us that PhilHealth will be increasing our premiums that we pay every year, every so often, until we're paying 5% of our salary. No, if you make 100,000. For me, that has to be put on TRO muna, hold muna, because I know for a fact PhilHealth is not collecting properly. Why are we going to suffer? The people who are paying, the ordinary employee is going to be paying more. Kakatasan mas malaki. While inside PhilHealth, they're not even collecting properly. It's a very small percentage of what they should be collecting. Some of it goes to the treasury, some of it does not. Some of it goes somewhere else. Okay, there's so much that has to be fixed inside. There has to be an
so
audit.
You're saying it's okay. So
Corruption.
Is the problem one of corruption?
One of
more
corruption,
than lack of enforcement or funds for that matter?
That's one. No, that's one. And the system. Okay, there must be an audit. We should make it a law, there must be an audit, regular audit of an independent body that will audit not just the finances of PhilHealth, but the IT system and their legal system. Because those are the two most problematic divisions of PhilHealth. The IT system, a lot of hospitals are complaining they're not getting paid. But if you see the records, it's as if they're being paid. What's happening to that money? Why is it like that? And I know that this government for a while tried to audit them, but they didn't allow themselves to be audited. How can that be? They cannot say don't audit us.
But Doc, hindi ba trabaho ng COA yun?
Yeah, but that's not the job of a senator. Unless
No. Not the senator, but there must be a law to make sure there's an audit. It's not COA. COA audits the finances, audit the IT system, an independent IT expert, the information technology. They must be able to open it up. The law has to be amended. It's not in the law. There's no transparency. They don't have to. There's too much secrecy inside PhilHealth, what's going on. Because you see, PhilHealth is a quasi-judicial. They are the investigator, they are the lawyers, they are the judge of everything, okay? So we have to look into all of these things, no? Because we have to look into the law, and we have to see also how it's being implemented, because a lot of hospitals are also complaining on how it's being implemented, and I agree, no? For example, there's abuse, there's a lot of populism. The intention of the universal healthcare is this: no Filipino will go into financial ruin or just because you got sick, okay? Now, the idea is prevention. The idea is in every barangay, you will have your free maintenance medicines, your hypertension medicines, diabetes medicines, etc. So you don't end up having renal failure. You don't end up having a heart attack. You prevent that. You prevent hospitalization. But if you need to be hospitalized, there's a referral system, referral network, so you can get into a hospital assigned to you. Okay, then after you're through there, you go back. If it works, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, no? And if you go to a basic package, you don't pay. It's only if you get more than the basic, then you pay a copay. And the copay should be at least something predictable. Maganda talaga ang intensyon ng universal healthcare. But then, this is it. We can help our LGUs achieve that, especially since the Mandanas ruling of the Supreme Court will be in effect, okay? And EO 138 has been signed. So that money should go to them. However, there must be oversight, very close oversight, and the Senate can do that, of how it's being implemented. There must be accountability, there must be deliverables. And we must see that if we give you this money, ito ang deliverables ninyo. So it's full devolution of the funds, okay, finally, not just the functions.
If there are funds, but ang problema ho kasi lagi ng insurance. Wala namang pondo, no? As
this is not just insurance.
I remember President Duterte saying, okay, so now I have signed the Universal Healthcare Act, pero walang pondo. But that's the problem of the Senate, no? So where do you get the funds? I mean, the plan is good and the law is good, but
okay. No, it's not just the funds. I'm not talking about PhilHealth. PhilHealth is just one aspect. I'm talking about the taxes. Because now, with this Mandanas ruling, the money that goes to the LGU is not just their ERA. So they're not limited to their poverty. It's the entire the taxes of the entire country, including customs, will now be divided. So each one will get from the taxes. This is iba pa sa PhilHealth ito. Iba pa sa PhilHealth, okay? This will help with the funding of the hospitals, with the funding of agriculture, etc. But we have to watch how this is funded. I mean, how this is implemented, because you can always, use it for corruption. So ito oversight ito. Congress must have an oversight over this, not to see. You can see, and I think there should be a hall of fame and a hall of shame, as far as LGUs are concerned, so that people know. Teka, itong LGU magaling, ito amin hindi, bakit? No? Ito yung pera na nabibigay. There must be transparency of the funds. No? And the PhilHealth naman goes into when you're utilizing the healthcare. The taxes, regardless of whether healthcare is being utilized, it will go to you. So you can improve your hospitals, you can improve, etc. You can buy medicines. No? PhilHealth is the payer of the utilization of the professional fees, of medicines used, etc. There's so much you can do, but it's oversight. Okay, it's oversight, and we have to review the existing laws because there's so many laws, but they're not being implemented or not being implemented properly. So they keep making new laws, but not really checking on the implementation. Medical, PWDs, etc. Even organ donation, they're not really checking if it's really happening. So I think first we have to have an inventory of so many laws, because why make new laws when it's there but not implemented? And we know in the hospitals which are being implemented and which are not. No? So we need to look into that. So madami.
Yeah, especially in pandemic. Yeah.
Oh, one more thing, Luchi, you talking about pandemic. No? We have to make ourselves ready for the next pandemic. That can be legislated. No? I think it's very important that we as a country, we are ready for the next pandemic. Not like what happened to us when this struck. No? And we can legislate those things. And then we can also legislate education for the children. No? DepEd, especially even digital education, so that they're not as gullible to fake news as they are now, not as gullible to being victimized by predators in the internet. There's so much we can, and then we can also increase the capacity for virtual diagnosis and virtual consultations, because it will solve a lot of our problems of lack of doctors in the barrios if we can maximize virtual. So ang dami pwedeng gawin actually.
Okay.
So,
Dr. Mingita Padilla, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Dr. Padilla, maraming salamat po. Dr. Mingita Padilla is running for senator under the Partido Reforma. Maraming salamat po.
Ingat po.
Thank you.
maraming salamat
Thanks,
din sa
Doc.
inyo lahat. Bye-bye. Good night.
We'll need to take a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Benjo Binaldo? Yeah, Benjo Binaldo.
Hi, Sir Benjo. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Ms.
Hi, good
Cheers.
evening, sir.
Magandang gabi,
Such an
sir.
honor to be here. Good evening.
Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News. And now joining us is NTRCB Executive Director, Mr. Benjo Binaldo. Magandang gabi po, Mr. Binaldo, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sir Ed, Ms. Annie,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Lucci,
Yes,
and
sir.
Sir Robbie. Good evening. Mayang gabi.
Mayang gabi po. Sir, well, marami tayong pag-uusapan, pero let me start off with this. Yung controversial na Netflix episode ng Pine Gap na pinatake down ng NTRCB because of the showing of the 9-dash line
Nine dash.
map. Kasi we're hearing two sides of it. May nagsasabi na tama lang, may nagsasabi naman na parang overreaction daw. Well, yun nga pero hindi natin mapapanood yung, yung episode dahil take down eh. Ano po ba yung konteksto sa pagkakagamit ng mapa? Kasi baka naman mamaya yung pagkakagamit sa mapa, it was kontra dun sa 9-dash line or was it supportive to 9-dash line?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, no, sir. I'll just briefly try to explain what happened. Basically, the entire thing started from a complaint filed by the Department of Foreign Affairs. No, I believe it was ASEC Nathaniel Imperial who filed a complaint under the NTRCB. And this was around July 6. No? The complaint basically said that because under our jurisdiction, yung mga movies po, nagsabi po dun sa complaint na in this episode or in this series in Netflix, in a series called Pine Gap, na feature daw dun, using the red lines na nakasulat doon, including the Philippines, na pasok daw tayo, ang Philippines, sa 9-dash line ng China. So we checked on it. The process here is when you file a complaint or a case in the NTRCB being a quasi-judicial body, so we summon people. We issued 2 summons, I believe, July 19 and July 27, because we had at first some difficulty identifying where Netflix is, although we've been communicating with Netflix. So we sent a summon dun sa original na we've been communicating with the address, and another one. There were 2 summons in 2 different dates. Finally, we got some answers. And there was a certain Ruben Hatari, who said, after several letters, said that he is a representative of Netflix for the Asia Pacific. So we, the board, the NTRCB, communicated with him, and of course he read our summons. In that summons, sir, we asked them that we believe there is at that point we deferred immediately to what the DFA was saying, because the DFA was saying that there's a violation of our sovereignty. And because at that time, this year, in fact, in 2016, there was already a resolution in the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, and we all know that, of course, that China lost and that the Philippines won in that arbitration, and that the 9-dash line that China has been invoking doesn't stand anymore. So with that, we asked immediately for Netflix to stop and desist from showing the particular, especially the particular episodes, no? Kasi imagine, Philippines, nasa red line tayo in that movie. And,
yung episodes lang po ang tinanggal, ano? I mean, isa o dalawang episode lang ang tinanggal, hindi naman yung buong, hindi yung buong series.
Yes, yes. In that, yes, sir. In that series, when we asked them to natanggalin, at least yung initially ang gusto namin matanggal yung episode or yung picture wherein there was a Philippine map, and then there's a 9-dash line, a red line. In fact, it was very clear sa malaking background sa likod. If you're watching those, ngayon hindi na makikita, no. So when we said that, ultimately after a series of emails and ultimately some conversation through Zoom. They gave in, and they said, Netflix said through Mr. Hatari that they will be indeed taking down, not just deleting that portion. They will be taking down episodes 2 and 3 because they respect the sovereignty of the Philippines. And we are very, very happy indeed that Netflix has done that. And once more, this is another victory for our country.
Yes,
and
sir.
we thank also President Duterte for supporting our decision
Yes, sir.
on this.
So, sir, what I meant to ask po is, in that episode po, was the episode endorsing in effect the 9-dash line? I mean, ano po yung konteksto ng pagkakagamit noong mapang yon doon sa episode? Was it in support of the 9-dash
There's a
line?
series of thank you.
Kasi there are many
There's a
ways
series
of presenting that map, and we haven't seen it, of course, obviously, because it's down already.
Well, you may not be able to see it. I don't know if I can show it as one of my pictures. It's in the Sinpo, makikita doon na there's a huge screen. There's several dialogues.
Parang
ng mga
LED
characters.
wall, parang ganun, parang tactical wall
Yeah.
ata yun eh.
Yeah, I don't know if this could be.
Yes, actually, Sir Benjo, we saw
yes.
that.
Yeah.
I think ang tinatanong po ni Ed ay, ako rin yun ang tanong ko, no?
Yeah.
Baka naman in the context
Opo.
of the story, they were, in effect, did they say that this is the South China Sea, this whole sea, I mean, ganun ba yung konteksto? This whole sea encompasses the territory of China.
Okay.
Meron bang ganung konteksto dun sa storya that the DFA found in violation of our sovereignty claims?
Well,
And
actually,
nakita lang po namin yung Fiery
Yeah.
Cross Reef, which is part of the disputed Sprat list, di ba?
Yeah, yeah.
Yun ang parang nakapasok doon, pero wala nga po kaming nalalaman tungkol sa, I mean, nobody knows, ano ba, what were they talking about? Were they saying
Is the series
that,
endorsing the 9-dash line? Is the series
Yeah.
critical of the
Well,
9-dash line? Ganun po. Ano
okay.
yung kanyang konteksto?
I have here a copy of the decision. I don't know if you had the opportunity to read. No, I'll just read to you some
Sige,
of
sir.
the dialogues, no? Because the public will
sige po.
never
The
be
dialogue,
able,
okay.
Yeah.
may never be able to see it.
magre-reading, Sir
Sige.
Benjo.
Sir, may papel pa kami dyan.
Okay, students, let's listen carefully. There's a dialogue here. Main screen, give me a moment processing image resolution. This is Eloise talking. And Jacob observed the map, Eloise projected in the big screen, and I think you saw that big screen at their back. No?
Yes.
Jacob character, is the Ra-2 in Chinese territory? And then Gus responds, which is disputed territory? And then Eloise says, well, they've been saying it's theirs since 1948. Then Jasmina, actually, according to them, it's been theirs since 3000 BC. They just went to sleep for 100 years, and everyone just took it off them. So Eloise was briefly seen in the background with a screen monitor exhibiting the 9-dash line. So this was the scene surrounded by the maps of Cambodia, Brunei, Malaysia, and Asmina shares her thought about China's claimed territory. And then Gus says, they still lost the court case. Eloise says, well, these are the Fiery Cross Islands where China built a Navy base. And then Gus says, I love the way they just take islands. Well, it's a very long story, but
yeah, that's what they were saying, na when you watch it nga, actually, it's quite anti-China. So
Yeah.
people were wondering why, NTRCB or the DFA needed to strike it off.
Yeah, of course, we got a lot of comments, no? But however, we were counting the comments. Mas majority pa rin yung a lot of the people who were so happy that we are invoking our sovereignty. But what DFA wanted to show us was the picture of the map, wherein there's red lines that we are part of that 9-dash line, which is the most important part, I believe. And this is the most contentious part in the case in the PCA in The Hague. So I believe even if the dialogue, they were trying to be safe. Netflix was trying to be safe with the dialogue, if you listen to it. But even with that, what DFA wanted to avoid and asked us to decide on was the picture among, kasi yung mga generation ngayon, especially the younger ones who watch Netflix, they just by pictures eh, di ba? Different from all of us where we just read, we used to read a lot and rationalize on everything. Now they just based on pictures. What DFA wanted to avoid and they explained to us was this picture wherein there's a red map saying China and then Philippines is part of it. Even if it may be fictional, even if the characters may have been saying something against China, but that picture wherein they want that to be like deleted from the minds of the younger generation, because 10 years from now, they might always think and be inculcated in their minds that the Philippines might be indeed part of China, or in that, especially that there was a decision already by the Permanent Court of Arbitration.
Revisionist kasi.
We're trying to avoid that.
But I have to admit that every time we talk to the NTRCB about essentially censoring anything, the NTRCB itself becomes the topic. Censorship itself becomes the topic. Because on the other side of it, I wonder if people really did notice the 9-dash line, diba? I mean, I think that was shown for a couple of seconds at most. In the meantime, I have to admit, the way you read that out was not only very good acting, but also, I have to say, from a scripting standpoint, that packs in a lot of information that even media has been trying to communicate to people. And it packs in a lot of information. I think I'm sure there will be people who can nitpick on that, who know more about the situation. But from a basic education standpoint, it packs in a lot of information that people wouldn't otherwise understand. And so, I guess my question is, baka nagulat din kayo, di ba, na parang, we're doing this for the country, di ba? Nag-complain naman ng DFA, where totoo naman yung complaint ng DFA, and then I'm sure it was also somewhat of a surprise na there's more than two sides of this pa rin. Di ba? Parang pinagtanggol na nga namin yung bayan. But then, I guess my question is, do you understand also why, on the other side of this, the censorship itself, I suspect, is part of the concern of the public still?
Yes, thank you for the question, sir. Yes, it is indeed part of the concern of the public. However, because this is very sensitive, especially to our sovereignty today, then the NTRCB took this distinction to decide on this. In fact, normally, I was even asked earlier by media na parang, why didn't you announce earlier? They were thinking that like we might be hiding it. Actually, we don't. We have several decisions that we just come out with, and we don't really announce much. But since this has international impact, even the U.S. Embassy is trying to communicate with us. No, then medyo you're right, sir. Medyo nagulat nga kami because of the reaction of the public. Some are invoking censorship. But that's our role under PD 1986. We have that role and invoking the right of parents and the basic principle of parents patriae, which was enshrined in our Constitution, wherein government, because we are under the office of the President, of President Duterte, government has the role of being parents to its children, especially the minors. So as NTRCB has been given that mandate, reviewing, classifying, regulating movies, we feel we have that obligation. Some may call it censorship, but we have that obligation to correct and not to be revisionists, as Ms. Lucia said, to correct, at least guide, especially the youth of today. You're right. Maybe the impact may be too much, and nagulat din kami. But we had to act on it, and we thank the Department of Foreign Affairs for filing the complaint. At least we're able to resolve at this point.
Mr. Benjo, it's not the first time that the Duterte administration has tried to regulate or to put some regulation in the materials that come out on Netflix, the most popular, I think, medium of entertainment throughout the pandemic. Is that effort still alive to put some kind of regulation in streaming services?
That's a very good question, ma'am. In fact, there was a meeting today by a few members, not all the members of NTRCB. Just so you know, we were discussing that issue with our new chairman, Chairman Ogie Haro. No? We have a new chairman because this decision was signed by former Chair Rachel Arenas. Now, last week, Chair Haro took over. Basically, the streaming services, if you look at the decision, however, I was told by Chair Haro, I cannot discuss thoroughly at this time on the issue on Netflix and streaming on your question, ma'am, because, well, I'm not supposed to say this, but Chair Haro told me that if I'll be pushed, then I can say this. Just an update po. Kasi magaling kayo
Sinesensor ka. Sinesensor ka ni Chair Haro.
Chair Haro, papaalam lang ako sa'yo. Sasabihin ko na lang. Anyway, sabi mo naman, pwede kong sabihin if I'll be pushed. Now, I'm being pushed by Miss Ami. Thank you po, ma'am. Ganito po. The Netflix filed a motion for reconsideration.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's first. Sa inyo lang to lumabas. Okay. Nagpaalam na ako kay Chair Haro and he gave me that signal to say this because you pushed me. Then I cannot discuss thoroughly on the issue on Netflix, on the principle of sub judice. We all know that I cannot discuss that because there's a motion for reconsideration. What I can discuss is in this, the issue lang naman po. But thanks for the question and thanks for pushing me.
So tuloy pa rin yung effort to regulate the Netflix in particular.
Yes, but Netflix is so huge, and not just Netflix. Our mandate itself, previously, it was very clear, the movie and TV. That's why we have deputies. We cannot watch everything po. So that's why we rely on our deputies or complaints from concerned citizens. We have a complaint hotline. You can send us messages in our Facebook page and our website. We rely to these complaints. In terms of if you're saying that we want to regulate like 100%, we don't have that capacity po. And I will explain further when the motion for reconsideration will be resolved po. Thanks for the question.
In the case of the Pine Gap example, again, a number of questions. I mean, does this set precedent? And also, when the DFA in this case or the national government does persuade the NTRCB to look into something, obviously in this case, they can argue sovereignty, maybe national security is at stake with that one scene. Do you limit yourselves to that, or does this essentially put us on a slippery slope of anything that the national government might say to the NTRCB, constitutes something that might threaten or destabilize national security and not just sovereignty?
Well, thank you for the question, sir. But I just want to clarify that the national government, although we are under the office of the president, they actually don't say much. They don't give us hey, you have to check this, you have to check that. In fact, it was not the office of the president who filed the complaint. It was Assistant Secretary of the DFA. And in our yung mga feedback mechanism namin and a lot of our NTRCB deputies, we get the complaints from either our deputies or complaints that are filed in the NTRCB. So the national government actually does not do much. Pinapabayaan lang kami because we have our own mandate, and it is also enshrined in our PD 1986. We just follow everything po in PD 1986. And like, for example, yung mga classification ng mga movies, whether it's PG, SPG, and everything. We just do our mandate. Our board is very, very active. Our distinguished members of the board, we have 30. Today, we have 27. And they're working so hard to do their job. We don't listen much in terms of some, because we also got mga feedback from some people no, na baka in order to ng taas. Wala naman pong ganon. I never got to talk to the president, or we never got any communication from them.
Buti na lang, hindi lumabas sa K-drama to. May dalawang adyuma dyan na
naku,
magagalit
talaga.
sa'yo.
Kung hindi, mauna ako dyan magreklamo.
Pero sir, of course, we do understand yung limitations ng mandate ng NTRCB. Movies and television po yan. However, kasi baka sabihin din ng iba na bakit ganyan na napakasensitibo natin sa sa pelikula kung saan pinakita ang kontrobersya. Hindi man lang in support of 9-9, pero yung kontrobersya tungkol sa 9-9,
Yes.
napakasensitibo natin. Samantalang hindi tayo ganun kasensitibo sa pagtrato sa mga mangingisda natin sa West Philippine Sea. Of course, that's already beyond your mandate and your scope. Pero you take a step back and look at it, baka may ganung pananaw yung iba na parang Netflix
Dali naman kalabanin.
Pero pero patay mali siya nandun sa kabila.
Nag-MR na nga eh. Well,
Yes.
Mr. Benjo, yeah, in
Yes,
line with your work, magre-reopen our cinemas this month.
Oh.
Have you approved?
yes.
Have you
Yes.
approved the movies na for showing? Ano ba yon? Maybe you can give us an idea.
Well, in terms of the movies, I don't have any update yet immediately. We will give you an update po soon. But yes, thank you po for the question. I spoke with Miss Annie Nabal. She's the chairman of the SEAP. The SEAP is the organization of all cinemas and movie theaters in the entire country. They told me that they will be opening because IATF actually already allows them. However, they're not, because of the protocols, they're still trying to do the protocols in their movie theaters. They told us today, this morning, that movie houses will be opening December 1. December 1 po.
Okay, but siguro
and
po yung
although they
isang...
are allowed now,
apart
Yes, sir.
from reminding everyone that yung health protocols mahalaga pa rin, but the other question, of course, ng mga tao, ano ba papanuorin? Di ba? Parang meron bang content? Maybe we can get, maybe we can get some idea via the MTRCB. Dumadami po ba ang applications sa inyo na paki-review dahil nagre-ready na kami ng content?
Well, I cannot say at this point, but thanks for the question. I will need to give you feedback. But of course, during the pandemic, our board has been very, very active even during the pandemic. Most of the things na nire-review po nila are TV. In fact, nag-dip ng konti during the pandemic ng few percentage points yung income namin because there were no movies, no. But still, TV is ongoing. So they were reviewing TV programs. As of now, I cannot give you a list of all the movies na who are under process po, na nagpapa-approve po sa NTRCB. But definitely, they're all prepared because even 2 months ago when I talked to SEAP, they told us that they're really looking forward. And in fact, we sent a request kay Secretary Mon Lopez for this around 3 months ago for their reopening. And finally, they allowed reopening, I think a few weeks ago. But since they're not yet ready, they gave us a date na December 1. However, some theaters now will be opening because it's already allowed on November 24. But then again, I just want to take this opportunity po na it's going to be in limited capacity. No, at this time where we are at level 3, IATF only allows 30% capacity. And then I think if in areas or in local government units wherein there's yung binabrand data ng IATF na may 70% na vaccination ng A2 and A3, they can increase their cinema capacity by another 20%. And then if that local government unit, or I'm sorry, if the cinema will get that safety seal, I think it is by the IITF na may safety seal sila, they can add another 10%. So 30 plus 20 plus 10. So around they can have a capacity of 60%. But to your questions po, some of the moviegoers might not be too comfortable. Even the SEAP was saying na hindi rin nila alam if it will be profitable, no? Kung medyo limited lang. And then baka konti pa lang, we can never say. But what we're happy about in the NTRCB is at least the economy is beginning to open up. Cinemas, isa sa pinaka-last priority ng pag-open up, but we're happy that President Duterte, the IATF, has finally allowed the opening po.
Isang movie lang. You mentioned even one movie na approve nyo na for showing.
I cannot, ano po, because actually I'm the executive director and I don't actually
Schindler's
review the actual movies. I will have to, to give you a feedback on that po.
Pine Gap muna, Pine Gap. Pero hindi mo
Pine
maintindihan.
Gap,
From
Pine Gap.
episode 1 to
tinanggal na po
episode, hindi mo
yung
maintindihan.
episode 2 and 3.
Nga in Pine Gap.
Okay. Well, maraming salamat po, Mr. Benjo Benaldo. Mr. Benaldo is Executive Director of the NTRCB.
Ingat, sir.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to
sir.
everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much.
And that's all for this special edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.